Welcome to EasyClear, your one-stop software solution. Our goal is to uniform the supply chain along all modalities into one platform. This is inclusive of Transnet, customs services, and IATA, along with cross-border and transit into upper African countries. We offer system as a service that allow easy-to-use transitions between the forwarding, RCG, clearance, invoicing with disbursements, reporting, and bulk interactions. Follow me into the agent industry with your host, Devin Few.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the EasyClear webinar, day 4. We'll be just going over the imports module within EasyClear, how to register and frame an import file, and also how to add new clients while you're raising the import file, inclusive of sending it through to customs, and minor ways on how to read rejections, inclusive of printing some of the import documentation as well. Alrighty, let's get started. So firstly, we'll log on to EasyClear. We'll be providing you with your EasyClear company name, inclusive of the password. If you lose that information, please reach out to EasyClear, as we can always provide that information back to you, normally by logging on via TeamViewer or AnyDesk. So you'll select your company name in regards to the dropdown, your department that you logged into, whether you've got multiple departments such as imports or exports, please log on to the relevant department. If, say, for instance, your business is set up towards imports, air, road, rail, and sea, your auto file numbering can be set up in regards to that one as well. So you'll be logged onto the air freight department to raise air freight style file numbering, inclusive of road, rail, and sea as well. So auto numbering can be set up specific to your modalities. All right, then you'll have your username and your direct password. Okay. Once you log into EasyClear, you'll see the landing page. Duly note, I'm zooming in just a little bit. You can utilize the magnifying glass on EasyClear on top, just to zoom in a bit if it's required. This works on any web page as well. We'll jump straight into the imports module. And from the imports module, you can raise a file standardly by going to clearing import bill of entry. From import bill of entry, you have very specific buttons here on the left-hand side. Home will take you back to the landing page. Add file to start raising a new straight shipment in regards to EasyClear that doesn't link to any forwarding files. You're more than welcome to copy a file. Duly note, this will copy a file from the registration screen up until the tariff line screens. So if you do copy a file, you're more than welcome to go in there, delete the supplier's invoice, making certain it gets rid of those tariff lines inclusive in order to re-raise your new supplier's invoice and the corresponding tariff codes, which I'll divulge into momentarily. Add own clearance. If you've done a forwarding file, you can search the house bill number from the forwarding file in order to pull that information from forwarding into the clearance file. Add to console, specifically adding to console. Once you specify that button, you can click on a file number and it will give the file number inclusive with the next console shipment. All right. We also have from client instructions. So if anybody uses the documents portal from a client's perspective, they can raise a clearing instruction on their side through the EasyClear application, and you can raise a file from their clearing instruction in EasyClear as a registered file. For those of you who'd like to divulge further into that information, please contact EasyClear, as it is a finite setup to make certain that that works correctly. And if anybody's using the master filing, you can always pull a registration house line from the master file, which will link it through to the clearance file and back to the master file directly. From there, you get the search functionality. The search functionality allows you to search the first 10 records or the first 1,000 records. So if you just press search straight away, the latest saved file or first file number, for instance, low, and that's I have a slow internet connection at the moment. I'm just going to adjust my router there. Alrighty. And then in date range order, you can see the latest date will always pick up first. All right. Once EasyClear is finished spinning on top, if you find that you've got a slower internet connection, always wait for it to finish spinning before you continue to the next item. If you'd like to search for a specific file number in the sequence here, and you know what the file number is because you have the documentation in front of you of the previous file cover you've saved, you can search for specific files, such as if I'm searching for test air 112255, I don't need to type in the entire file number there. I can just type in the 255, leaving the placeholder as known as a wildcard without needing to type in the air 112, leaving that out of the percentage, pressing search, and it will divulge into one result, thus taking me into the file directly. Right, I'm just going to go back to the search screen. We do also include a advanced search as well. The advanced search at the bottom allows you to search via house number, or if you don't know any of the file numbers, you can always search via the master number, depending what reference your client gives you on an already framed file within the EasyClear system. All right, so there's multiple modules that you can search by and multiple fields that you can search by as well, including serial number, tracking invoice number, or furthermore, your actual agent's third-party reference as well. Right, so for this one here, I'm going to press add file as we're adding a straight shipment. All right, so this will be your import bill of entry page where it's required to please utilize or insert the information. Now, before I start inserting the information, you also see a button here that says use defaults. So per department and per your duty type, you can actually click on the button that says use defaults. At the moment, if I click on use defaults, it's located just slightly down after the transfer mode and duty type. Defaults are set up per modality and per the duty type as well. So that's why EasyClear asks you to please put in the transfer mode duty type, and then you need to click on the program to be doing a straight is the default and water to your flight numbers and inclusive with your customs office code. Those defaults are located in the system for you freely to use, but if you'd just like a bit of assistance on how to set one up, you're more than welcome to give us a call and we can take you through it. Right. For the transfer mode here, I'm just going to specify, let's start off with a sea freight type shipment, and then I'm going to change that over to an air freight type shipment as the supplier's invoice, tariff lines, then the SAD 500 screen process remains the same per modality. So whether I'm choosing mode type 1, 2, 3, or 4, the supplier's invoice capture and the tariff line capture process does remain the same, but obviously each tariff code will have its own unique requirements. Right, so we'll just specify transfer mode 1 for sea freight type entry, and then duty type being DP. If I had used the defaults, it will go into the backend, look if there's any defaults, just to try and learn through. I'm going to give you a quick squiz at the default page if you'd like to, and I believe only administrative users on the network can go into the segment in order to make the changes. So we'll just go into maintenance, and then we get the department defaults button right there. And this is the place where you can actually go in and set it up. So I see somebody set up a operations default here. If I'd like to add a new one, I click on the blank page on the left-hand side to add. Once I'm adding the new one, I'll specify department, stop is X, how is the duty type going to be inclusive of DP, transfer mode 1, is it department address, toll number, web address, cost center, inter-departments, full access. Accessibility is their default VAT account number as well. And those are the minor defaults that you can set up in the application. In the backend, we'll just ask you, is there maybe a default customs office code? And we just have to set that up in the backend as there's no accessibility to that in the front end. This is why I'd rather say contact your EasyClear, nearest EasyClear department in order to help you set up the defaults, or just send us an email confirming what defaults you'd like for that duty type so that those defaults do pull through. Please be very careful with defaults, that if you meant to say that you're going to be using something like a Seafreight Durban office, but you know that your customs office is rather going to be JHB, just take note your default will be DBN. You'll have to manually change it to JHB. Right, so we use common defaults for those items over there. Right, so I'll just go back into clearing imports, and because I didn't press save, I can't search for the file number I was preempting or adding. So I'll have to add the file number from scratch. Cool, so we'll go transfer mode 1, DP, on a transfer mode, was an agent file number, and then use defaults to pull that information through based on the setup. The importer, if you'd like to add the import into the system, because you can confirm it doesn't exist. So if I wanted to search for an importer as myself, I can see there, Devon FE, I'll leave out the very last run tab, and then allow the program to run a search for that. If there was one result, the one result will pull through, but if there's multiple results, we define the search to the first type of characters you type in order to allow you to run with the selection. If, say, for instance, you would like to add a new client to the system, I'll also do the same thing, put in Devon Few 002, because I can see that that name does not exist in the system. I would therefore, while registering the file, press the plus button. On the plus button, this allows you to add the supplier whilst you are registering the file. So no need to have the client maintenance screen open. You can go into the client maintenance by pressing this blue button here on top. Please take note when you do press that button, the name that you put in will be saved in the application. Once a name is saved in the application, a name cannot be edited. So if you added the incorrect name, rather delete it, re-add it before you start using it. If you note the name is already existing on EasyClear, rather don't delete the clients. Put the clients on customs hold, for instance, and I'll show you how to do that momentarily before you start adding the new client name. Cool, so we'll just add the test address, or let me just add a format for the address, 23 Test Road, Johannesburg, and 1601, for instance. Cool. Furthermore to that, there's an importer. So if I had to try and press save at this point, you'd actually see they give you an error code saying that the customs code is mandatory for an importer type entry. I do see that the validations for the test system have been switched off. If it does ask you for the error, then you know you got full validations on your import module. But per this note, I see if validations are switched off in the EasyClear application, then it won't ask you for the mandatory information, such as right now, if I had to press the save button, I can see my internet's running a little bit slow today. So EasyClear web application will only work as fast as your localized internet speed. And then from there, if I had to press the save button, if no auto numbering has been set up, it would ask you for agent file number. Over here, it does ask you for the importer's customs code. So if I leave my mouse over there, you can see the pop-up saying importer's customs code is mandatory, supplier is mandatory. If I had to try and click on that and then press the ignore button, it won't let you ignore a mandatory field such as importer or supplier. These issues actually occasionally allow you to save your file. If these errors are not fixed and you come out of the file without having pressed save, because of these errors, the file would not be saved. So just double check your mandatory fields before you start cleaning the file. All right, so we'll just go into the plus button here, input the code, and also the plus button notice to the customs hold as well. I'll just move my router closer to the window, so hopefully that'll be a bit of a better signal. All right, so if I go into the importer again, I can see it's saved, everything except for the customs code. If, say, for instance, I'm not a registered importer with customs, I'm not going to have a registered customs code. So thus you'd be allowed to use the Tennessee code. Most commonly allowed this, but Sea Freight do allow the customs code of 7070 through the customs offices. If it is an unregistered trader like this, customs rules and regulations would therefore ask you for the ID number, or passport number. So I'm just going to use the ID number for the South African portion. Alrighty, and then EasyClear will just validate that it is the length of the ID number further today. So I'm going to confirm and double check the chat to double check if there's any issues that apologies for the delay in sound and process. As it's mentioned before, my instance causing a little bit of delay, but it still is going through. Can you just let me know the chat so I can just rework that? I've seen the ID, tax, and passport number there, and inclusive that's done on unregistered. If, say, for instance, you do reach a point where there is a valid customs code, EasyClear will automatically ignore the ID number because there would be a valid customs code on top. So whether that feels popular or not for certain wheels, but if it is an unregistered trader like us, then we'll take the ID number into account. All right, just going to press the client maintenance button here for show more. You will notice I didn't press the green save button, as the blue button to take me into client maintenance should have saved the ID and passport number. Alrighty, I've just gone back into the application. I just want to confirm everybody can still hear me. Oh, it doesn't seem to be any issues there. Let me just double check my settings over here. All right, so the microphone is going through. The connection should be a bit more steadier now. So I'm just going to continue based on this. And then, as I say, with the recording, we'll go through there. Cool. I just hope the connection's a little bit better this time. Apologies for the interruptions. All right, so we can press the plus button on the importer, and you will notice I've changed over to a different Wi-Fi connection, and I'm still logged in the EasyClear application without issue, worry, or concern. The previous blue button did not save my information. So you'll notice when I changed from one Wi-Fi to another, it lost the information due to the fact that I did not press the save button. All right, so I've done the unregistered trader in regards to the unregistered trader customs code, which will ask you for ID number, tax number, or foreign passport number. I've chosen ID number and insert an ID number accordingly. Once done, I can press the blue button. If you press the save button, the screen will close down. So I'm just pressing the blue button, and then you can see the information that I had typed in is also saved without needing to press the save button again. So that's why I say before pressing the blue button, just make certain your name of the importer is accurate so that you can, because once you press the blue button, it's saved, and then you cannot change the name thereafter. Hence, if I change this to a 3, and I try to press the save button, you'll see it changes back to a 2. At this moment in time, if I know this is most likely going to be used for importer and an exporter party, I can mark off exporter. And then I can also mark this off as a debt if I'm going to be invoicing this client as well, which will be at a later session. From there, I was also speculating that if you would like to type in a client name, you've used it, but you notice the client name is actually incorrect, it's always best to not delete the client and rather go ahead and put the client on hold. So if you apply a customs client hold or a customs hold, the client hold will stop you from registering using that importer name. And also if you put in a comment over here, so you can press the apply client hold, reason for holding, do not use, client has not paid, for instance. Then you can proceed with that, and only administrative users or users who have edit client permission set can actually apply the client hold. If you do apply a client hold, we do capture the history on that, where you can download that to Excel, and you can supply a reason as to why and who put the client on hold, as inclusive of if you remove the client hold as well. So if I had to see this client hold here and try and use this client as well, and then once I've finished the file, try and press save, you'll see that the comment comes up telling me I cannot use this client specifically because there is a client hold that will pop up as a notification directly under the importer. I'm just going to remove the client hold for now. And then operations notepad, if say for instance, please confirm credits limits prior to EDR, for instance, you can also apply a operations note instead of applying the client hold, just to let operations know that there is a note for them to double check before they start using the client. So I'm just going to press the save button behind there. And this can be updated at any given time. So once I use that client for 002 and run the selection, you should actually, upon save, you should actually see a note underneath the client once all the mandatory fields are populated as well. All right, then we can go over to the next field there, client reference. So if you would like a client reference number, you're more than welcome to populate it here, and that can feed over to your invoice screen as well. I'm just going to use a supplier that's already existing in the system. Most commonly, a supplier will just be the name and address. But if you do note that a supplier and importer are related, like a mother-daughter company or sister-sister company, pressing the plus button, then that's where you would insert your customs code there for the VDN number, the value determination number for being an R1 linking scenario. If, say, for instance, they are not actually related and your VDN number, your valuation code is N1, and you do have a customs code in here, you'll get a rejection from customs saying your VDN number not supplied, and then you just need to come in and remove your customs code under the supplier, as if they are not related, you use an N1 code for valuation, then that code should be removed. All right. Warehouse is just a stock standard field. So if I had a WH type entry or a warehouse or bond or free store, I'm more than welcome to use the warehouse portion there. From that, if I was doing a GR type entry, I could insert the remover, which is also known as the rebate user. For the acquitting agents, if there's any item that is an onward transfer mode, more commonly like RRT or RRB type shipments, you would require an acquitting agent. Furthermore to that, the transporter field is more utilized for internal processes only. This information does not go to customs, so you can bypass that field, but you can also use it for reporting on an internal system as well. At the entry clerk, the entry clerk field drop down does allow you to change the name of the entry clerk accordingly, But please take note, the activity log would have recognized who's registering the file. So even if you do change the name, the activity log will confirm who has actually raised and registered the file, which cannot be, that information cannot be changed. Project code, internal purposes, or if you'd like to use the project code for a specific reason in your company, such as a job number, you're more than welcome to. The tracking reference number, that field is not typable. That is only pulled through if you're doing add own clearance from the forwarding screen. The tracking reference number there will have automatically pulled through to this field for you. Furthermore, if you know that you're running a sales rep commission type basis within your company, you can put in the sales rep code, or this information can automatically pull through based on the entry clerk selection if you would like to process it that way, or typing in the sales rep code automatically. And then based on your calculations, say sales representatives may have a 3-month basis, then we can also give you a report that calculates per your business requirements. I'd say just reach out to us if you'd like to introduce the sales rep commission process within EasyClear, as we might need to tweak the final report for the final calculation between a 2-month sales rep commission versus a 6-month sales rep commission, and thereafter any further information or revenue would go to the house. Right. Next in line will be ship name and voyage number. Now you will take note, it leaves a gap in between. That's because EasyClear works in a very specific way for ship name and voyage number for sea freight. If I had to change the transfer mode to 2, for instance, and press tab, you'll see the field has now updated to train number. If I have to update to modality 3 for road and press tab, now it's going to ask you for the truck and trailer details. So no matter the modality, the screen format remains the same. It's just the differences of what information you're going to be inserting. And we can go to transfer mode 4, and that will ask you for your flight details. So the screen updates per the modality you are selecting. And I'm just going to change this back to transfer mode 1 for the sea freight entry we are doing here. The sea freight entry, I'm going to use MSC loaner. So I know my vessel name because I've received my master bill of lading on the straight shipment that I've got here. So if I press tab, I can see MSC loaner pulls up 100% perfectly fine, the ship carrier code, vessel radio call sign, and the master carrier code. Now you'll see that vessel agents is the only one that you would need to type in manually, but the beautiful thing is the vessel agent for MSC is MSC. If you were using Evergreen, for instance, being the master carrier code, Evergreen would have a unique, it used to be ESA, I believe, for the vessel agent, and then the master carrier code accordingly being your ELG's type situation. I do forget the master carrier code for Evergreen type shipments, but yeah, MSC is the only one, and most shipping lines, where they are their own master, so the vessel agent would not be inserted there. Right, so I'm utilizing MSC loaner. If you do find that your ship name does not actually pull out in the search criteria there, it might be because Transnet haven't registered with customs, or the vessel agents haven't registered with Transnet. A vessel agent technically has a minimum of 4 days prior to arrival where they should register with Transnet. And if they bypass those 4 days, then they would just be penalized by Transnet as to the fact that they're going to be arriving within the 4 days. However, they have not registered, so they'd be penalized. But some shipping lines take the penalty and they only register the very last second before they're about to dock. So that might mean that if you don't find the information on EasyClear, that they actually haven't registered that vessel with South African customs. So if you do find that is the case, you're more than welcome to type in the ship name manually into our system, inclusive with the master vessel call sign and the voyage number. And if you submit that to customs, and even customs turn around on the rejection saying that that vessel cannot be located on their system, then you know, oh, let me phone the vessel agent and just ask him what is the delay in regards to their registration process. That is always the best way to tackle those type of items. For the voyage number, I'm just going to use 014 Whiskey. Obviously, your master bill of lading number would have that information on it. If I had to Google the master bill of lading number, I would only find the ship name and the vessel radio call sign. The voyage number is unique to that voyage, whether it be from Shanghai to South Africa, and then South Africa back to the United States, the voyage number might differ. Right. And so MSC, the ship carrier code has pulled through automatically. If I do find that the ship carrier code is not corresponding to the master bill of lading, I can also type in the ship carrier code that I see fit. That's why we allow quite a versatile system. All right, so I'm going to keep it as MSC, as we know the MSC loaner most shipping lines will be MSC. What is the estimated date time of arrival? You can go ahead and manually type this in, but I do find that selecting on the calendar does also help. So I'm going to specify that this will land in on Sunday, and then we'll put in the year, month, day. If you notice that your browser is actually reading day, month, year, that's perfectly fine. In EasyClear backend, we will automatically save it and convert it to year, month, day. It's just your computer datetime settings that control the front end of EasyClear as per the web page as to what is the date format that you are seeing. So you might see on your computer, it'll be day, month, year, but your colleague's PC, year, month, day, that's not too much of a train smash. Just make certain you follow your daytime settings on your computer. Right, so as I said before, master carrier code has pulled through automatically from the ship name. So from that, I'll be able to So ESA and EMC being the master. So if we're just choosing a evergreen shipment like that, I do thank you for that information. Not certain of an evergreen ship, so let's go into Google and see what evergreen ships are available at the moment. Africa. Cool. So I'm just going to utilize whatever evergreen marine ships are coming into the country at the moment. And it's always best to try and Google the shipping line that you're reviewing, so you can also see the exact times and dates if you are submitting that RCG portion at a later stage. So I see there's 205 vessels. Does anybody have a vessel name on hand for me or service routes? Because it's always best to search via the master bill number or actually the ship name in accordance to that. So if I just go back to the ship name according to here and just press the magnifying glass, I can see what the full ships are in the system. Let's just review E, for instance. There you go. So I can see that there's quite a few items there. Let me see. And if I do utilize Mole Ernest, thank you very much for that. So I'm not too familiar with my shipping lines as it is. Most commonly, I'll access the Transnet system directly for the XML messages to see what vessels are available as well. Hence, I link to the cargo due system. But the ship name, I'm going to use Mole Ernest. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. I'll leave my voyage number 014 Whiskey as I'm thumb-sucking that information. That would be on your master bill of lading. OCN has pulled through as the ship carrier code, vessel radio call sign. So if I had to go ahead and Google that vessel radio call sign, I can put it through. And furthermore to that, I thank thee for the ESA and the EMC. So your ESA would have been your vessel agents, as far as I believe, but your EMC, I see OCN has pulled through. I'm not going to be using Ocean Networks for this evergreen shipment. I'm going to be utilizing the EMC. So that's why we say you can, EasyClear will automatically pick up the first one based on the ship name, but you need to correspond to your master bill of lading document. Hence why I overtype the ship carrier and the master carrier with the more corrected information. So ultimately, customs format now, when the shipping line looks at your paperless release, you'll see that the master carrier code will automatically pull into the master bill of lading on save. So there's no need for me to type in or retype in the EMC. Vessel agents. So the format that customs and the shipping line would be expecting is 4 digits first for your vessel agent. So in this case, it's ESA, and then the fourth character is a space. Next will be your master carrier, EMC, followed by a space. And then last but not least is the remainder of the master bill of lading number. That is the stock standard format. So once you get a release by customs, your paperless release should be in that order: vessel agents, master carrier code, followed by the remainder of the master bill of lading number. They often vet that on the paperless release in order to give you a release from the shipping line. Cool. Thank you very much for that information. I really appreciate it. The master bill of lading documents, I'm just going to call this MBL 1001. So we can see upon save that the EMC will auto-populate at the beginning over there. Once you've saved it once and it has auto-populated and you feel like that master bill of lading number is wrong because of your correspondence with the shipping line, after save, you can go in and manually manipulate it. Inclusive of the VOC, if you're running a VOC, then you can just change the master bill of lading number how you please, and the system won't automatically try and populate the master carrier code in there. Right, if there's a house bill number, then obviously it wouldn't have been a straight shipment. So for the house bill number, I'm just going to be HBL 1001. If I insert a house bill number, customs are going to ask you for the house carrier code. If you don't have a house carrier code, but you need the house bill number to print on the declaration as well, I do find a lot of companies cheat in our system as well by leaving the house bill number blank, and then they just populate the house bill number in the house carrier code. In a sense, that works. I don't know why people do it that way, but it's just to get the printout. However, the house bill number and the house carrier code doesn't go to the EDI message when you do it in this manner here. So I do find a lot of people cheat our system and cheat customs by doing that, but that's on your own prerogative. So if you do have a valid house bill number but no house carrier code, I would rather suggest to put in marks and numbers. That's the more safer bet than doing it that way like I've seen most people do, please. The more correct method would be to put in your house bill number and then insert your actual house carrier code. For the house carrier code, it's utilized DHL as the most common items to use on testing type scenarios. So I've just selected the random DHL scenario I've known, but obviously if I don't know my house bill carrier code, I'm going to phone DHL and ask them which one do they recommend I should use. Also try and get that in writing, so if you've used the wrong one and customs try and penalize the situation for it. I'm not certain if there's a Section 91 penalty for the incorrect house carrier code, but I believe misdeclarations might be the case there. If you do get an email from DHL, maybe you can just push it to their responsibility if the case may arise. All right. Then the submaster will only be utilized if your house has a further submaster to it. Then you can put in the submaster number provided by the sub bill of lading. For the place of issue, for instance, this is going to come from Shanghai in China. So I see that if there was only one result, it would automatically pull through, but there's two, so I've got to run with this selection. You'll also note that this top section over here that has pulled through for the ship carrier code, because I was changing the name over and over to something that didn't exist on the first search, the ship carrier code search buttons here are a display, but if you don't click on it, nothing's going to happen. If you do click on it, then you will take notes, my master carrier code has changed. No, I want it to be EMC, not EMCO. You'll see that that does remain on the screen, but you can ignore it because you know your information is correct, which corresponds to your master bill of lading documentation. The reason why this does come up is because EasyClear links to the SARS mass tables. So if I go ACM tables via the SARS website, we do link to the master cargo carrier C, and that's where we're picking up our information here from due to the modality we have chosen. So if you do find that at any point you would like to just double check a master carrier code that isn't registered with SARS, you're more than welcome to open up this website here, which I'll just put on the chat quickly and go through these documents readily. If the SARS website is down, then obviously our magnifying glass search to that website will also be down. Hence why we leave it as a field where you can just type in the information without relying on that website. All right. And yeah, I do agree with the comment there that if the RCG system, your master carrier codes and house carrier codes don't correspond to your RCG message between house and master that I've submitted, it's like putting the information from RCG and your imports declaration into an Excel document and doing a VLOOKUP. If there's one typo difference between the two, custom sees that as a transgression. So your information here and your RCG message should correspond, please. Alrighty. Then we'll go to the SOB date. So for your shipped on board date, a lot of the time on a air freight type shipment, you might have a master shipped on board date, but then often the time on the house airwaybill document, you'll see that your shipped on board date is coming from the bottom of the document. So just double check on that, because a lot of the airlines like Lufthansa and Emirates would have put the house airway bill, shipped on board date at the bottom, and that's the date that's most commonly used. But for your master bill of lading documents, your shipped on board date, you can actually Google that vessel and even see what the shipped on board date is on for the Google portion there. Right, so as a shipped on board date, I'm going to specify yesterday's date, 09/21. Now, I wouldn't have registered this file yesterday because if I did it before 10 o'clock in the morning, then I would have seen the rates of exchange aren't available. So sometimes you got to just wait a little bit before the rates of exchange do become available. If it says rates of exchange are not available, like for instance, if I had to put in 22, rates of exchange not available, if I had to go to the SARS website for the SARS rates of exchange, I can see the rates haven't been released yet. So normally they release it between now to 1 o'clock on a daily basis. And then within EasyClear, once we receive the rates, we double check it, we upload it into the system available for your use. All right, so then you can see rates of exchange not available. So it's best you can complete the shipment, but only try and finalize the shipment once the rate is available, please. So we'll say, okay, cool. The SOB date is my rates of exchange date for imports. If I'm utilizing exports and you're doing the documentation today, your rates of exchange date is normally yesterday. All right. This update invoice rates of exchange. So if I had to specify no, that would mean the rates of exchange SOB date would not pull through to your supplier's invoice screen because I'm specifying no on the screen. And that's only commonly used if I had purchased the forward cover rates of exchange and the client has the documentation for that to confirm that is the fixed rate that you are using for that day. If you do not have the forward cover rates of exchange, then yeah, please allow the system to insert the rate for you. Once I reach the rates of exchange, I'll just divulge into it that if the rate doesn't exist in EasyClear, you can go into xe.com to utilize the spot rate from there, because we only pull this rates of exchange that come from the SARS website, and then obviously the LME rates inclusive. All right, so port of discharge. So we're going to specify that the final depot code here will be City Deep. So technically it's going to come to JHB. So Johannesburg being the last one, so not JHB International, JOHA. If I had to just type in JOH, I'm going to get results such as John F. Kennedy, Johnson in New York, and whatnot. But alphabetically, I can see there's only one JOHA. So in the laziest method, JOHA automatically resolves to Johannesburg. Try not to type in the full name because I see a lot of people do typos. So if I had to do a typo here, I'm going to get a rejection from customs, and customs ask, where's your ISO code for your port of discharge? So it's always in best interest to allow the system to auto-complete the name for you. Country of destination, this will be the country. So if I've had to put in South Africa, it would resolve to ZA. So ultimately here I would type in just ZA, and that would be enough for a customs release. Lastly, then the customs entry place. This is actually coming in via DBN, but the customs entry place I've got to be submitting to because of Joburg City Deep Containerized Depot. This entry is actually going to be JHB. Ports of exit, I'm going to leave it as JHB as well. Now, the main reason behind that port of exit versus customs entry place is if I have a RRT shipment for transit entry on RRB, the goods might have come in via Durban, but for your on-road transport mode via road freight, they're leaving via Beitbridge or Komatipoort, for instance. The ports of exit here, if I had to just leave that blank, you're more than welcome to, because we already have the customs entry place for the straight shipment into South Africa. For the description, you can just leave a short description of the goods. Pallets of goods, for instance, so a short description of the goods, be it electronic items or stuff like that. It's always good to have a short description, so when you print in your file cover, you can actually see what's going on there as well. What is your payment code? Now, I know my payment code for the shipment is probably going to be D for deferment or C for cash. So even if I leave my payment code as F for free over here, when I reach the SAD 500 screen, the payment code there is what is going to go to customs. So this will automatically pull through as F, but if I change it to payment code D or C, or inclusive of V on the SAD 500 screen, then that is the payment code that's going to customs, not this one. This is just a placeholder to automate the SAD 500 screen. All right. I'm going to utilize the package type. So please use the package type from the drop-down list, whether it's barrels, containers, or what the package is within the container. Is there any remarks? Remarks are more for internal purposes. Number of pieces, I'm just going to say specify 12. Gross mass 100. Net mass, let's make that 90. What is the cubes? Now, volume would actually be mandatory for sea freight type entries, so let's insert the volume at 35. This information is quite mandatory. So say, for instance, if you are doing your invoicing based on this one here, your invoicing would calculate the difference between the gross mass and the cubes. The highest of the two would determine your cartage calculation, for instance. So please don't leave this information out if you are using the invoice module within EasyClear. Then we have the depot code. The depot code, I'm just going to use 17 because we would like to use the city deep. Now 17 comes up with multiple depots, so I'm just going to specify the Johannesburg one that I'm using, so that when I print out my file cover or documentation, I can see my city deep terminal for Johannesburg does print out, and the delivery or collection document would also help with that, because then you can see what depot code you're fetching it from. And then for air freight as well, if you're using A1 for Swissport cargo, for instance, that's what you would use for air freight. So you'll see I'm registering a sea freight file, but I can also tell you what depot code for an air freight shipment is going to be used there. So don't confuse the situation in regards to the fact that I am doing a sea freight entry, showing you what an air freight scenario is, but your customs release will validate that your air freight depot doesn't belong to the district you are choosing for the sea freight depot region. If at any given time, that's the most common rejection, that you may have selected 17, but you've specified your port of discharge is Durban, that will still technically go through for your JHB, because 17 does fall under DBN and it does fall under JHB. But if my depot code, for instance, was 08, and I know that's Durban Container Terminal Pier 2, but my customs office says JHB, that will reject. The customs office would have to be DBN because that corresponds to depot code 08. If, say, for any reason that you are uncertain which depot code falls under which customs entry place, we can give you the customs code list document that we pull from the SARS website that actually gives you what district office falls under, or what depot code falls under which district office. So if you do get a district office rejection and you're uncertain, phone us. We can give you a copy of that document and just help you out there. If at all possible, maybe I can just also give the latest document that I've got to this group who's online here. And I can also, when we upload the training sessions to YouTube, give everybody a link to the live SARS website's customs code list. So you'll be able to just download it from the SARS website at any given time. Cool. Well, my PC just runs a search on that. I'm just going to go further to the additional information tab here. Oh, let's just change that back to 17, or I'm going to get a rejection. So bill site number, if I had a RIB shipment, but I know I need to do a DP entry thereafter, that's why we insert this bill site number for. So my bill of entry site number would also be my bill of entry number. So my bill site number and my RIB number, we generally make it the same. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is because bill of entry number is always 7 characters long. Your bill of entry site date, I'm also going to correspond that basically to the assessment dates, which at least 2018 onwards matches the bill of entry number. Oh yes, that is a very good commentary there. When it is multiple selections here and you've put in 17, just to make sure it saves correctly, we're going to put it that way. I just want to save the file without doing the update of the Johannesburg, just to see what it corresponds to before we go ahead and change it back to what it's supposed to be. All right. So if it was a DP that has a RIB attached to it, this is information I can insert here as well. So that would be my previous MRN details up until the accepted add. The next field far further to that is just the freight to specify whether it's prepaid or collect. You have dangerous goods. So if it is dangerous goods, you can mark it off as yes or no for hazardous goods. What is the file status? So if you know you don't want to send the file to customs, you can actually mark it off as a cancelled or a reference file. And that's actually, with the setting enabled in EasyClear, we can set that to make certain that if you do mark it off as reference, it's not going to allow the EDI message to go through. That is a setting that needs to be enabled. So please just make certain it is tested before you confirm that in your business environment. Overseas agents. So if you do know it's overseas agent to receiving agents and you want to print that on specific documentation, you can utilize that field, inclusive with the subcontractor. Sea freight, most commonly I would use Incoterms here. Now the Incoterms here is actually very, very important. These Incoterms for sea freight type entry, if I had to select DDU or DDP, for instance, let's choose DDP. That Incoterm can be set up to help your calculation for the insurance on your debtor's invoice. If it's not inserted here and your Incoterm is specifically set up to be a DDP or an FOB or a CIF to calculate a specific insurance calculation, and it's not populated, your insurance calculation will not pull through. Or alternatively, you ignore in the Incoterm and then obviously the insurance calculation can pull through there. So this screen is very important. A lot of clients have the supplier's invoice Incoterm where that information does not go through to the debtor's invoice side. That is just to help you say whether you'd like to generate 2 serial numbers based on your Incoterm or based on your valuation code, because you can have separate valuation codes, an N1 and R1 scenario where you can split your LRN numbers on using the supplier's invoice or the Incoterm as well. But that does not affect your invoicing. Your invoicing Incoterm calculation is from this screen here, please. Cool. Is there a loading port? What is the insured value if you need to? Uplift factor, chargeable mass. Is there a SCAC code for your sea freight if you want to do SCAC tracking as well? And then last but not least, console. So this is a very important portion. Unless your management team says use the console, you use it. If you do not have permission from your management team within your business environment to use console, please don't even touch the button. What this does now is if I press tab, EasyClear is going to tell me on top, 2 files will be created. So exactly the same registration information. I'll get file number /A and file number /B. So it automatically registers 2 files in the system for you. But please, as I say, double check with your management if that is allowed, because there might be a financial integration where the file number has to be a very specific length, which does not allow that integration. But if you're using a very free format type orientation business, then you're more than welcome to use it to do a quick generation of 2 to 10 to 100 different files, slightly changing the information between each file, But upon each file numbering save, you're going to get a duplication in master number. So just double check that before you continue to the next screen. I am going to create two files here just to show you what the scenario is. So we have a two-step verification plus a third step being the save button, just to confirm you are the one who put in 2, and it asks you basically 3 times over, are you sure you want to do this before you proceed? So if you've accidentally done it and you're blaming the system for it, please take note of how many times the system asks you, are you sure you want to do this? If you're not certain if you want to do it or not, then ultimately just leave it as blank and it should be fine. Cool. I'm going to leave it in 2 just to show you an example of what it does, and press the save button. Because I'm talking too long, I believe the test environment has 8 minutes turnaround time before it actually kicks me out the system. So ultimately that information that I just pressed has not been saved. So I'll just run through that again quickly and just run through it very, very quickly there. All right, so I'm just going to speed this one up quick. So if we press the search button, I can see as per today's date, my file number does not exist. So I'll press the add button over there. Now under transfer mode, there's no file number, so my importer will be Devon. Now I can see there's multiple over here, so I'm just going to say Devon Few 002 to make certain I'm selecting that one. If I have to leave the last character, I can see there's 2 results, so that's the one I'm selecting. My reference number, who's the supplier. At least with pressing the plus button name, I know my importer and supplier was saved in the system. It was just my file that was not saved there. Remover, those fields I can leave blank for straight up shipment. I'm just going to use the same shipping line as we had earlier over here, Mole Ernest. Now that information is not pulling through. We had a Mole Ernest. Oh, I'm misspelling Ernest. That's why. Okay. Mole Ernest pulling through to the system. 014 Whiskey is the voyage number. Estimated date time of arrival. So that's how I prefer using the selection list. It makes life a lot easier than the typos. Master bill lading 1001, house bill lading 1001, DHL, International P2 Ltd. I'm pretty certain that's probably the air freight scenario. The vessel agent in regards to this one will be EMC. And I see my OCN was automatic selection. So it's very quick to skip those fields where you know that this one would have been EMC and EMC. Always follow your documentation, please. Yeah. I might have a little bit backwards there. EMC is the master, and then ESA is the agent. So vessel agent would be ESA. Okay. No submaster, place of issue will be Shanghai. My place of issue ISO code needs to pull through automatically. If not, please reach out to us. Don't type in the ISO code manually or the country of export manually for an import type shipment, please. Rather reach out to EasyClear so we can help you load the city into the country lookup that is located under the maintenance screen. Ships on board dates, I'm going to specify that would be in yesterday's date for the rates of exchange. Not sure why my internet connection is so bad today, but no worries. Port of discharge, where is it coming to within South Africa? So this will be Johannesburg. JHA. Cool, that resolved it. ZA is my country of destination, and my customs office place, JHB for this sea freight type scenario. Port of exit, I'm just going to leave blank there, and then test package. What is my payment code? Package type, number of pieces, gross mass, net mass, the cubes 35, and then the depot code 17. Okay, we're going to select Johannesburg. I'm just going to leave it back as the 08, and then push it back as 17 so we can see what the scenario is there without running the selection like earlier. And last but not least, I'm just going to go to the Incoterm and make this one a CIF, for instance. Cool. I know I have changed information to earlier, but please note I don't have documentation in front of me, so I would utilize what's on the documentation at the moment. I'm just thumb sucking that information. Cool. So your CIF is obviously your cost, insurance, freight. And then pressing the save button now. Well, at least we weren't kicked out the system at this point. So I should receive a file number accordingly to this. I would love to know why our internet's very slow today. We had internet issues over the past 2 days, so do apologize on that. But obviously your web environment will be as fast as your internet, purely because this is hosted by Microsoft Azure in the cloud and not on the EasyClear premises. We went for the program to just think about what it's doing there due to my internet connection. Might be Microsoft Teams also slowing it down just a tad some. I'll just answer the question. So say, for instance, if you put in JHB, as I say, the program is very versatile. So you can really type in any word you want there. And I can see auto numbering hasn't been set up for this. So I'll just call this Devon 10012 and try press the save again. So the program, every field is versatile. Once on the versatility for this one, say for instance, place or issue. If I had to change my place or issue to be JHB, like you specified in your question, you'll see that the ISO code and the country of export don't actually change. Now, JHB, I can save it like this, and the program will save it and try and send it to customs like this. But remember, customs don't focus on place or issue, the full city name. They follow on CFreight for the UN low code. So if you notice that your country of export and the place of issue ISO is blank, or in this case, I've gone JHB, it can't resolve as to which ISO code you're using there. So it remains as the previous selection. I can still save it like this, submit it to customs, I'll get a release, but customs will see this as CNSHA as your UN low code, or for air freights, obviously your IATA ISO code. So that is the information that goes to customs between the UN low code or the ISO code between air, road, rail, and sea. So the system does allow you to type that in just in order to save the file, but obviously you would double check it on your SAD 500 before you actually submit the entry, just to make certain it is correct, because you don't want to submit a misdeclaration to customs and cause a penalty. If you would like to make certain that if you're getting a lot of rejections because of that, then, as I say, just reach out to EasyClear. We can make 100% certain that it will validate that field for you and switch on a setting for you, so it's very strict. But that means if you don't have a valid place of issue and you filled out all the information, you won't be able to save the file until you have a valid place of issue in the system. So it all depends on what validations you have active in your system that'll determine what's allowed and not allowed in the front end here. On the test environment that I'm using here, I believe half the validations are switched on and not all the validations. So I can type in whatever text I like there, the program will save it. But if I've switched on full validation, it will make certain it's part of the country master before it's allowed to be saved. Right, so I'm just going to change this back to Shanghai and press the save button. Then you'll note here that I can see City Deep Container Terminal has been resolved. This previously did say for the 08 that there was Container Terminal Pier 2, but when I did press the save button, EasyClear automatically resolves to the first option based on that depot code. So then I'm just going to reselect the Johannesburg to make certain that if I do print out my file cover or any other documentation that needs to print out the container depot, because the depot code is exactly the same, even if that name selection was wrong, but you know your depot code's right, EasyClear's reporting has been scripted in such a way that it's going to locate the depot, locate your customs office, and just realize, oh, Johannesburg would be the resolution because Johannesburg would be the district's office code and the district depot that falls hand in hand. So we use, if your customs entry place was blank during the saving process, then your depot printout for your documentation would also be blank. So we just use a bit of logic on the reporting side to say your depot code falls into that customs office district. That's the depot code that you're going to be printing. All right, so I'm just going to press the save button again. At least the spinning factor is a little bit faster right now. And then I'm going to press the print button. So from the print button here, I'm able to go ahead and see the customs worksheet. I cannot run the customs worksheet at this moment of time because I have not captured any tariff lines. And the program will tell you no tariff lines have been captured, or my supplier's invoice total, my tariff line total does not correspond. So therefore, if there's a 1 cent difference, your customs worksheet will not pull through either. Then furthermore to that, you'll see the SAD 500. I cannot go over to the SAD 500 because it says print customs worksheet first. If you have printed your worksheet, but you make one change on the worksheet or on the file, it's going to ask you, you can't review SAD 500 because you made a change in the file. Save it, recalculate, and then you can proceed to your SAD 500, which obviously will generate a new serial number. Right? Furthermore, to the print option, whatever documentation you feel you need. So we've got file covers, but you might need a specific file cover for air, road, rail, and sea independently. So we can load multiple file covers independently. By default, everybody's got the ASCII CUDA right through until customs worksheet, and any other documentation that your business may require, we can manually attach it from the support perspective at EasyClear to give you, like this, another customs clearance instruction where you want it to print in a different manner, or very specifically file covers as well. Fantastic. Cool. Thanks for answering those questions. I appreciate that. So I'll just print the file cover and the clearing instruction. Now you'll note if you do press the file cover but nothing happens, just double check you don't have a pop-up block in the top right-hand corner of your screen, especially when IT work on your computer, because they might have reset your memory, might have reset a couple of things, and that resets your browser to not trust the website. So you just got to say pop-up block is allowed. When the same things happen to me on internet banking, I'm trying to get a statement, but I've got a pop-up block from the browser, so I can't download my statement until I fix the pop-up block. That is a browser function and not an EasyClear function. Right, so I'll click on the file cover new, and I can see based on my file cover what information I've got in there and what information I can pull through. So this is just one of the old examples of a file cover. We have many, many templates towards the file cover, but most commonly from 2018, there's a very unique file cover, which I do like the clearing instruction, this file cover as well. But like for instance, the clearing instruction, I haven't populated any of my tariff lines or anything else like that. If I did, I can see that information does pull through automatically. But if I haven't reached my SAD 500 and I want to print the clearing instruction, then I can just fill in these fields in accordingly, print the clearing instruction, and provide it like this. If you would like the clearing instructions slightly tweaked, I wouldn't tweak this one that's hard-coded in the system. I'd actually provide you with a secondary document like this and print the customs clearance and delivery instruction, where this one over here, you can see as linked to screens customs clearance instruction. Some additional fields that can be populated by the user, pressing the print button, and then this clearing instruction can be edited by either myself or any support user in regards to if you want it slightly tweaked as well, then we can tweak this document as you please. We just follow the written text on the SARS website to say that they want specific information on the clearing instruction, but there's actually no specific order to the clearing instruction. So if you want your tariff determination number to print on top instead, we're more than welcome and happy to make those changes for you. Just make the email instruction very clear as to how you would like that change, please. All right, so I'm just going to, if I've got multiple tabs open like this, and I want all of them closed without clicking close on each one, I can just right click on here and say close the tabs to the right. If I move this tab slightly over because I didn't want to close that tab, I can just move it across, close tabs to the right, and you'll see it's left those two tabs open that I wanted to remain open. So it's just a very quick way to use your browser. All right, so now I'm done with the registration screen. I can go ahead, and it's a sea freight containerized depot, so I'm pretty certain there's going to be containers captured on the entry. Please don't start capturing containers once you know that you actually have saved the file. If you know that you're importing like 50 containers into the straight shipment and you don't want to have to press plus save every time, we do have an import CSV. So once you press the import button over here, we provide you a template. So just give us a format of how your containers are going to look. Column A is going to be container number. Then it's going to be container quantity next, then the serial number in column C. We have to make certain the template reads it like that between A, B, and C. We create the template. Once it's added into the system, you can choose what type of template. We can name it in a conventional manner that you can recognize the template. Choose your CSV file, import in the data, and then you can import 50 containers at one given time. So it would have taken you 30 seconds instead of 10 minutes to capture all that information. I'm just going to close that, and that is available to anybody who would like to use it. And then I'm just going to press the close button on that and start adding a container manually. So the first thing I'm doing here is pressing the plus button. I'll add my 20 foot. Now I press 2 on my keyboard, and now I can use the up down arrows to differentiate between the 20 FT, between the 20 FR. My container number, for this one, I'm just going to specify my container number is most likely going to start with EMC, EMCU, for instance, like Maersk. I don't know the full container number. You would have that with you. It has to be the valid container number. And then the 11 characters length. If it's not 11 characters, EasyClear will just tell you this isn't 11 characters. Are you certain this is correct? And you can ignore it, but just make certain it is correct before submitting it to customs, as customs would also validate the same. What is the seal number? Now, if you don't put in a seal number in, EasyClear automatically puts in no seal number into the EDI message. So you can leave that blank when there is no seal number. Is the seal mechanical or electronic? Then what is the gross weight of the container? I'm just going to say that that's 100. It's a very light container. What is the depot code? So this will be 17. And then the cargo status, is it FCL or LCL? So between that, I'll either press a 7 or 8 on my keyboard, or I can use the drop-down list to select it. The depot code here does go through to most of the printouts, so just make sure the depot code is correct. And you can say that there's a drop-off depot for your unconsolidation depot before your delivery depot. You don't need to insert depot code 2. Most importantly would just be your depot code 1. Is there a UN number, a digi class? The packing group, some people represent packing groups as physical representations. So it's packed via 3 pallets by 3 pallets, for instance. So it's a good way to represent the packing groups. Or you can say 3 by 3. That is also acceptable. Is it refrigerated? At what temperature? So it can also be a minus degrees over there. Is it hazardous goods such as radioactive? And then is there a gauge as well measuring the temperature? Furthermore to that, if you want to insert minimum information, I would just insert the top section like that. Then your dimensions. If you want to insert dimensions, you can. That to calculate the volumetric weight, or I can just go back to the weight. What is my volume? And then what is my chargeable? Oh, let's make that 100 as well. And then the package type. So most people will insert this as minimum information for valid customs release. The rest of the information can be inserted as marks and numbers, and furthermore to a free store, if you want to, you can put in additional information for your internal purposes as well. Right. I'm going to save that item. As I said, my container number is invalid. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 characters. So I'm going to make that 11 characters, press the save button, and you'll see invalid check digits. So my check digits here would either be a long division based on that information there, pressing the save button. I believe it's either 1 or 3 based on the check digit. I'm not doing long division now, but obviously you would correspond that to your master bill of lading number and your container number on there. I'm going to press the ignore button to allow this one to save. And whilst I've saved my first item, I can select the container, and then this button here appears. So very quickly I can say, oh, I do have 3 containers on here, so I can copy container and then maybe copy container again. So I got 3 of the same container. I've just done that to make my life very easy to say any minor information here would change. So the next container would be a 2, change the weights and dimensions and packages, press the save button there, ignore, save again, and then on the third one, now I'm just going to press the save button again, ignore, and then I can see now I've got my 1, 2, and 3 different containers. So it's a quick and easy method just to change the minor details you needed to for the containers in order for that information to pull through. All right, I'm just going to close this using the orange button. If you highlight a container and press the red button, that will delete a container. And obviously that's your save and add button accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to put 3 containers on here and press the close button. Once I'm happy with there, I can also go into the comments. Now, at this point, you can already start doing your suppliers invoice and your tariff lines, which I'm going to get through to, but you can also do comments. So under comments as well, I can have internal comments against the file where we can enable the report for your system to print the comments, or alternatively, if your business has different methods to control the comments as to what do you want to use them for, your KPIs internally or anything else like that, you can use the comments and then just tell us what is the report you want built in the system so that we can help you print it out based on these comments. The next portion is internal or public. If I was using the documents portal, the client's document portal, allowing your clients to log into the EasyClear system, which is a billable scenario, so please reach out to us to enable that for you. If it is a public comment, then technically a client can go into the file from the EasyClear other end, look at the public comments and see, this is a comment from the agent to me as per why this file is taking a bit longer, what is the status, or whatever the comments you want to leave on the electronic system for them so that they can review live tracking of the file. If you're using tracking in a different method, then you can also use that public for a different method, not giving clients access to this. And then you can maybe rework this to a different type of report for like a tracking report that you manually send out to your clients based on those public comments as well. Print out to Excel, review it, and then send it to your client. So you can, in a diverse way, use this for many different processes. But if you are using the documents portal for clients, then maybe you want to be very strict with that method as well. We do take you through the full process. All right, I'm going to close this off, go into the milestones portion as well. Milestones is also listed on the documents portal for your clients, or you can print out specific documents in EasyClear to print out these milestones for internal tracking or tracking to your clients as well. Most of these fields would be mandatory. I mean, you can see the AT and ATD have been populated, and at a later stage when I submit this to customs, I can actually see what my customs time date stamp is, or when I actually raise the invoice. When I deliver it to a client, however, and I want to mark off is this item delivered, transport instruction, or has it been delivered, that would be manual, unless you have a system that has that information in it that EasyClear can link to, then maybe we can automate that with your third-party system as well. So your global GPS tracking system, for instance, if you have a developer for it, we can integrate with it. Otherwise, alternatively, this will be maybe a WhatsApp message or an email, which we can't integrate with. So therefore, we'd ask you to insert that information manually, and that can control the logic of how reports actually function. So if you have a logical method towards how a report might need to function based on the information you insert in there, then just let us know what that is so we can help you potentially build it. Alrighty. So I'm happy with all that information, and now I'm going to go over through to the suppliers invoice screen. So I'm on the registration screen. I'm going to be pressing this button here to go over to suppliers invoice. Before I do that, we can also lock this file at the moment. So you'll see the padlock option shows a lock picture showing you the functionality that says, would you like to lock the file? When the padlock is open, it's generally because your file is locked. It's showing you the functionality to unlock the file. Only administrative usernames and passwords can unlock a file. So at this point, your administrative user can either open the same file number on their PC because the file is saved, and they can unlock or lock the file depending on the situation. For any documentation that I've saved potentially to the paperclip, I can also click on this email button here. And if you do have SMTP details in the system, then you can push over your email address. If it's not set up per your entry clerk, you can manually type it in, give it a subject, hit the document tick box you want to send. So you see it's automatically added the file cover, even though I've just previewed it. Click the send button and it will send through to me. If you find your email address is not in the system, just reach out to your administrator user in the business. They can add it, or reach out to EasyClear as we can add it as well. If you find that the email function doesn't work, we do ask your IT department for SMTP details because we prefer the SMTP account, the email account settings, to come from your IT team in order to send that email through to you. So that is controlled by your IT team. So it's only an outgoing mailbox that never receives anything. All right. And then the last button here says close file. This will financially close the file, not allowing you to do any further information on the file. You wouldn't be able to capture creditors or invoices thereafter. So it's a nice way for financial control of the file to financially lock the file, which can also be done from the invoice or disbursement screen as well. Alrighty, then I'm going to press the arrow to the supplier's invoice. And you'll notice I pressed the arrow and I can see, oh, my master carrier code mismatched. Now, this only comes up because the program was trying to select EMCO. It's measured to that. It's comparing it against that. But we know, no, my master bill lading is more correct than what the system's been able to check per the SARS mass tables. So I'm actually going to click on that and press ignore. If I didn't click on that and ignore, that wouldn't ignore. So just make sure you highlight in the item you're trying to ignore. And based on that, I can now see it's ignored, press the save button, and then press the right arrow. If I ever go back to the registration screen and try and go back to the screen, I'm going to get the same pop-up, so you'll just have to re-ignore it. Whether the file's EDI to customers or not, the same pop-up will come through. Right, my transaction type, am I doing F for my foreign invoice, being the US dollar invoice? Most commonly for import items, I'm going to capture a foreign invoice. And that is very important if you're doing sea freight landed costings, to recognize whether it's a foreign invoice or a local invoice, depending on your costing requirements. If I was just doing a normal ZAR invoice, I would have chosen I. Right. So I'll specify my foreign invoice. My supplier name automatically pulled through. If, say, for instance, my registration screen had the word various under supplier, then over here it will pull through various, so I can go ahead and add my different suppliers into the system. But I see there's no plus button here, so I'd actually go back and say, oh, my shipment is various as per my supplier, but then I want to add supplier 2, 3, and 4. So I'd go there and type in my test supplier 1, add it to the system with an address, same with 2, 3, and 4, do it on this screen here. It makes life very easy. And then as long as I don't press save, it wouldn't have saved that information accordingly. So if I press the forward arrow, supplier invalid, let's just go back to the file over here. Just by pressing search and coming back into the file, it will refresh the supplier name to what it originally was just by refreshing the screen. Cool. Then I can go over and I see I didn't get the mismatch issue again, at least, and then do my transaction type accordingly, selecting my other suppliers that I've already added to the screen. An alternative method to do this as well is If you have two different browsers open or two different tabs, you can have the client maintenance screen open, add your suppliers using the client maintenance screen before running the selection here as well. In order to do that, I do find it's easy to right-click over here, have a new window of EasyClear open. Please remember, don't open a different file number, otherwise your link on top is going to be linked to the latest file number you have opened and not the first file number. The only reason I'm doing this is to be coming to here, go into my client maintenance, meaning it's not a file number, but it's an association to the client name where I can add my clients here, come back into the screen and select the clients I've just added. So that's the only recommendation I advise to have two screens open or two tabs open. If you'd like to use two different file numbers at the same time, please, please, please work on two separate browsers. Hence, you'll note I've actually got Opera, Chrome, and Brave installed on my PC when I'm utilizing more than one browser, and I can actually log on to two different entry clerk names at the same time using that method from my perspective. All right, I can see the invoice number, so I'll have my invoice number 001 coming from my supplier's invoice documentation. Next will be the invoice date. The invoice date here was the 20th. This screen here, I see if I click on the symbol directly, it struggles to come up. So I'll just slightly click on a little bit of the offset depending on your browser settings and specify my invoice date was the 20th. My foreign value, I'm going to make this 100 US dollars. My rates of exchange date has pulled through automatically because the first screen I specified, yes, use the rates of exchange based on my SOB date for the import. So therefore I can see, I'm going to be using US dollar, press the tab, and the program will automatically resolve to the US dollar. Then say, for instance, I'm using rates that isn't available on the SARS website. So EasyClear won't have that currency or that rate in the system. You might need to go to www.xe.com. If you cannot locate the rate in the system, and then you can use the spot rate from the XE website. If you need a little bit of help on how to orientate this website, you're more than welcome to give us a buzz. We can help you. But yeah, you get your spot rate from the XE website. Take a screenshot, physically put into your file, or even attach it to the paperclip within the EasyClear system, just so you got a bit of proof as to when customs do an audit, they query that rate, then you at least have a little bit of proof as to where you got that rate from. It's always a good thing to have. I can see my Incoterm here has pulled through automatically. For most people, whether you select this Incoterm here on the suppliers invoice screen is really irrelevant, unless you know that your management, I've asked you to put it in here purely for internal reporting purposes, or a different method is you can also use Incoterms and rules of origin certificate number and valuation code. So the rules of origin certificate number, if I know my entire supplier's invoice is going to have a RU number of 1 because it falls under the 6,000 euros correspondence, then automatically when I choose RU as a selection or EU trade agreements as a selection on my tariff line screen, that will automatically pull through. Please only do it if you know that your supplier's invoice, entire supplier's invoice is rules of origin. But you can adjust the lines independently to not leave that through. So I'm going to leave the RU1 certificate there to show you what it does. And then say, for instance, over here, valuation code, I can have an N1. This valuation code might be because this supplier's invoice, and specifically, it needs to be on one LRN number. However, if I add another supplier's invoice and make it R1, I can actually generate two different serial numbers based on the valuation code split. So you'll note when you are running your customs worksheet, we can enable a valuation code split button here that splits each invoice to create its own unique LRN number. That is the setting in EasyClear. So if you need that enabled, that is the purpose of it. Otherwise, 99% of you can actually leave that blank and not even focus on it. All right. Then for sea freight type shipments, it's always good to put in your forward cover rates of exchange, or if you know the rates of exchange is the same as the SARS rate, just maybe populate it down here. So when you run in your costing file, you don't have to reinsert it because any costing anything divided by 0 is unfortunately undefined. The program won't know how to correspond with that. For those of you who are communicating with ASCII CUDA or ASCII World agents for the cross-border, if it's an export, then you're more than welcome to use the ASCII World details below. We can show you how. That means your export entry, for instance, can be imported into the ASCII World application just to show so that your export becomes their import, or vice versa. Your import can also become their export documentation. So if you want to register the import, send it over to them, they can already have the export registered in their program by importing the EasyClear information without needing to reframe the whole file in ASCII World, making the process from agent to agent a little bit quicker. For BLNS, I believe we should change that to an E for BELNS, Eswatini. Right, so I'm just press the save button again. You'll see I'm still in this invoice, but it won't save it twice because I need to press the add button if I'm saving more than one supplier's invoice. I like to use the system where I add my first supplier's invoice, go to the tariff line capture screen, add the tariff codes to it, and then add the next supplier's invoice as I'm working. So I make certain in my mind I don't skip an invoice and the corresponding tariff codes. If I press the plus button now, I can add the secondary invoice, but at this moment, I'm just going to add the ocean freight charge. So you note for freight charges, air freight will be air freight, road freight, ocean freight accordingly. So for freight charges, you can specify those items. This will be invoice number 001. I'm going to make this one 10 euros because for some reason the shipping line charged me in euros for my CIF type charges or my FOB, whatever the Incoterm might be. And then I can press the save button here. Furthermore to that, I can see that this is a CIF and C type charge, cost, insurance, and freight. Apply this link to all invoices. Well, it's a positive figure, so a CIF type charge isn't going to affect my FOB value for my foreign invoice. However, if you know it's a discount or a deduction fee because my total invoice is inclusive of my total foreign amount for the invoice, then I can say, oh, wait a minute, this one actually is linked to the supplier's invoice. I'll press the save button. You'll now see that this is now a negative figure. So a customs worksheet will calculate everything to Rand. Your Rand total minus your freight total will give you your new FOB total. So your tariff line will still be 100 Rand, but the item on the tariff line is technically 100 US dollars minus the 10 euros calculated to Rand will give you your actual value for the item for the tariff line. But please, at the moment of time, this type of selection here says your total supplier's invoice is 100 US dollars. Minus 10 euros is actually, I'm just going to say minus 10 there, which would be $90 converted to Rand. And then you can say, okay, cool, my tariff line is actually $90 of the total $100, but the tariff line you capture as 100 because when you run your worksheet, EasyClear will automatically calculate the CIF value. If you note, oops, I didn't mean to make this a CIF value inclusive, it's not inclusive, and I change it back to an FOB value and press the save button, please remember to just remove the minus on top if you made that selection accidentally and press the tab button just to bring it back to a positive figure. Right, so it's only a hiccup that you need to have a look out for, but yeah, if you didn't mean to make it a CIF deduction value, you shouldn't have made it a CIF in the first place, but there's a way to change it back. I am on purpose going to change this to a CIF inclusive item just to show you what happens on the worksheet as well. Right, so from there, I'm happy with my invoice, my ocean freight. I can capture any discounts, markups, or any other items that I need to because it's displayed on my supplier's invoice or additional charges. Right, then I'll press the right arrow to go ahead and capture my first tariff line. If I have more than one supplier's invoice and I've captured my full running total on the left-hand side, then I can press the invoice button here and select which invoice I'm working on without having to go backwards and forwards between the supplier's invoice screen and the tariff line screen. Okay, so over here, I'm going to select my DP. It's a straight up import, so I know my CPC codes. Please, EasyClear will never tell you what CPC code or duty type you need to choose. And if you're ever doing a VOC and your duty type or CPC code change, the VOC will actually fail. It won't even reach custom side. So if that's the case, please phone us because we can advise you. You probably need to do something like a cancellation and resubmit or a substitution type entry. All right, what is the origin here? Initially, it came from China. What is the tariff code here? Now, on the tariff code, if you know you used furniture, for instance, so I'd like to click on the commodity, hit the search, and previously if I used calendars, when I chose the word search for calendars, the previous tariff code I used for the client or the supplier was 49,1000. Fantastic. So you can use previous commodities if you've ever used the word search and you'd like the word search to save. You can see what previous tariff codes you used last time for that word search on the supplier. If you have a product library within the EasyClear system, you can click on the product codes. If your product library is linked to the clients, it wouldn't be at this point because I've only just raised the clients at this moment in time. I can press this button here and actually add a product code to my system whilst I'm registering the file. So my product code is 001, press the button, but because it's reaching a dog error here, that means the company's, EasyClear is asking you what product library are you linked to. So most companies have it that their product library is linked to either the importer or supplier. I prefer supplier, it makes more sense, but most people have it via importer. So if you press the plus button next to your importer and then the blue button, you can go to defaults, common defaults, and link your product library to the client. If you know the product library name does not exist in the system, then you can actually send us an Excel document. We can import the product library for you. Just give us a product library name, and then we'd ask you to link it to that product library. Or alternatively, you can click on the three buttons on top here, click on the product library itself. And at this point, you can actually start adding a product library. So I'll say a new product library for test. Type in my first product code. So over here, I'm just going to press the save and you'll see, oh, wait, product number is mandatory. So any new product libraries you're adding, you're going to add your product code. And you can fill out the rest of the information here in order to pull through. Rebate codes do pull through from product library, but to keep it very simply, product code, tariff code. So I'm going to make this an 85 tariff code. Press the magnifying glass, choose the correct tariff heading for that product library. Press the save button. I can see there's my first item for this product library. When you have a product library in the system and the tariff code goes out of date, you'll just have to come in here, update that tariff code, or we can give you an Excel version of your full product library. You can update it in Excel, send it back to us, and we can update or re-import your entire product library within a couple of minutes instead of you spending maybe a couple of hours trying to update it within EasyClear if you have a length of 1,000 products in the system. So it's nice to have a product library in the system. And for costing clients, I believe product libraries are mandatory. If you don't want to use a product library, but you still need to have a product library code, you can capture the part number in the system, and that'll also pull through to your costing. All right, so here I've got my 1100, my origin was China. Then I've got my product code. My product code was 1001. If I had to press the tab button now, I can see I've gone to the tariff book. For tariff codes 1001, that is not the selection I was looking for. You need to press the product code button, please. Now, if I just press the search button, I should be able to search for 1001, but I didn't link this client to that product library. So the product library it is linked to is currently blank. Let's just go ahead and relink it to the correct library name that we had just created now. So I'll go to defaults, common defaults for my client, product library name, hit the product library name search, and I can just go ahead and see which product library name's there. If I just put in T, it will alphabetically label it to the test path library. So I forgot what the name of the library that I just saved it as. So I'm just going to link it to test path library. To see what's in the test price library there, I can just go back to the product library, hit my search, see what's in the test price library, and I can see, there's codes 001, 002, and 003 there. Cool. So it's always good to know your products, but generally they would come on your supplier's invoice, each invoice item associated with each product library. Cool. We will get an EDI message before the end of this meeting, so it's going to rush this next part and use the full FOB value. I'm going to put in 2 lines, one that's 50 and an additional line that's 50 as well. Remember, this is in US dollar. So I'll press the product code, hit the search button, and I can see there's my product codes that are now pulling through because my product library is linked to my importer. So 1, then I'll specify this is a quantity of 10, press the OK button, and then it should have associated the tariff code. But see, the product library didn't, it does have a tariff code. However, sorry, that's a tariff links. The product library, whilst I'm registering my tariff codes, I can actually go ahead and change it to the point that click on my product library and see, tariff code 84719 doesn't exist in Customs live tariff book today. So I'm going to have to go ahead and redetermine my tariff determination number. Like, what is my tariff determination number? That's the tariff code I'm looking for. Reselect it, push in the save button, and go ahead and insert it. Cool. So now I'm going to press the product code again, search for the product code that I'm looking for, 001, select the tariff code, quantity 10, and then you'll see, okay, cool. Now my tariff code is pulled through. So if it doesn't correspond to the live tariff book, we won't let you proceed. Next, the rates of duty. As I mentioned before, I'm going to select the EU Rules of Origin Trade Agreement for EU. Now I know that the one I'm selecting doesn't fall under the trade agreement, but I can go ahead and ignore that just to show you how versatile the system is and how to use the EU trade agreement to pull through the certificate number that we had on the supplier's invoice screen. Next, if I press tab, you'll see that no EU trade agreement exists, but if I know it does, I can ignore it. And because my supplier's invoice has the RUE certificate on it, my RUE certificate has automatically pulled through without me needing to retype it because I've chosen the EU trade agreement. So it's a nice way to use it. If you didn't do that, then you can always use the allocate certificates button on the left-hand side. So if I've got 100 lines, 50 of those are EU, and they saved lines, then I can allocate certificates to the EU trade agreement only. Cool. But don't do that while you're busy registering the line because it isn't saved as yet. I'm going to specify this as second hand. There's no rebate code schedule 5 and 6. I can't even click on these fields based on a DP entry. That would have had to be like a GR or something along the line. So this will be 50. Actual price is 50. kgs. Now, the reason why we add actual price there is because your actual price might differ from the FOB value. If you got a repair and return situation or partial rebate, PRCC certificates, there's multiple reasons why that might come into effect. If you do have a cost and repair scenario like a DPGR type scenario, you'll note I can change my tariff heading to a 1400 there. If I have a manual selection for cost of repair, then I can go ahead and select the cost of repair rebate code there and just double check my goods for repair and clearing. If I select that rebate code, you can see the screen might update to the cost of repair inquiries between those two. That all depends on your rebate code. I'm going to leave this one back as a DP type entry. Cool. Because you can frame a DP split GR type entry having 2 serial numbers at the end of the day. So I'm going to do that for us now. Cool. Cost and quantity, countable code only recommended for WH or WE or bonded type entries. So you'll notice you can't put that in here. Is there VAT inclusive? Now this is either just a Y or an N. Please don't type in no or yes. That doesn't compute with our system. So rather just put in a Y for calculate VAT yes or a no to not calculate VAT. To be coded is only for exports, that to be 1 or 2. Unable to process that for imports. Consolidate line. So if your SADC certificates, your tariff code, your origin, and your I forget the third option, your CPC code, sorry, are all the same and they're matched, you can consolidate the line. But duly note, if you are making a costing file from this, don't consolidate the line, as 99% of the time, you do not need to put in you should not consolidate the line for landed costing calculations. If it's just a normal entry and your client wants it consolidated, you're more than welcome to tick it. But by default, if you find that you do not want this tick box ticked, I'm just going to save this. There is a default in the system based on your importer. So I'm going to go back to the registration screen and just a little bit of a control method. I press the plus button. I go to the client maintenance. Then I go to defaults and I'll go to I think it's importer defaults or supplier. Let's just double check importer. No, it's not here. Supplier defaults. Forward defaults, common default. Sorry, common defaults is the one I'm looking for. If this is ticked over here, then by default, for this common defaults for my client name, then your consolidated line is going to be ticked by default. So if you know it's been ticked and you always have to manually untick it, maybe just untick this box, save it, so that when you're raising a new file and you're raising a new tariff line, that tick box won't be ticked by default. So you'll note that it will be unticked. Cool. When I save my tariff line, you can confirm the tariff line is saved by seeing it on the top right-hand corner. If there's any errors, such as the tariff code is blank, you'll see that your error codes are bottom left-hand side. If at any point, and this is available to any client who wants this enabled, we do have an import option from Excel that is also inclusive of the product library. So if you need to, we just need to take you through the process, as it's a very finite process as well, where we also have to activate the setting in the backend, where you can actually import your tariff lines from an Excel document as well. So in order for me to import lines, I can import 100 lines within the span of a minute, and the orange button on top here will go green, give me a notification to say imported perfectly fine or imported with errors such as my product code's tariff code. The tariff code no longer exists. Please update the correct tariff code, but it will still import the line with the blank tariff code, giving you the opportunity to go in there and update it. All right. So that's enough information to save my line. I can go in and fill in further information. I can see my roof certificate is populated. If there's a code and value that didn't pull through, so some instances where you're using a bond store and you wanted a B&D amount, so your duty type would have been WH, but B&Ds didn't pull through because you specified your duty was free, your VAT is no, so the system doesn't know what B&D amounts to calculate. So you might have to come in here and put it in manually if that's the case. But if there is duty against the tariff, then at least it will calculate automatically. If there's no duty on the tariff, why was it in the bond store in the first place? But I do believe some tariff codes go to duty free after a while, so there might be versatile scenarios as to why that happens. Right, you can see if it is a warehousing type entry, you would have had X warehouse information. But also at the same time, if your CPC code does not end in 00, this top portion over here, if it doesn't end in 00, customs will reject your entry if you don't put in the previous MRN details. So even though it says warehouse, it's a case of a scenario like a GR entry. But when out the country is returning under 1437 or whatever the case may be, my CPC codes ends in 37 for the case might be, and I'm using a very bad example there. But because it doesn't end in 00, I'd have to put in my previous bill of entry details as well as my previous CPC code. This is mandatory, please. Any provisional payments can also be done in the system where the customs is asking for it, or okay, cool, I've calculated my provisional payment for the PPT. It can be done on the very first entry. I personally like to register a full DP entry to see how much duty and VAT am I potentially going to be paying, then come back and register it as a GR, changing everything from DP to BGR to say, that's how much duty I calculated and VAT. So my PPT, I'm going to put in my full duty and VAT amount for my GR entry, where my payment code will ultimately be C or D for the PPT, where you can always claim a PPT back from customs using the refund jacket. Yes, that is absolutely correct. So yeah, 3700. It's always not good to give other people CPC codes. As I say, from EasyClear's perspective, we can't take the responsibility. So we generally don't tell people what CPC code to use. Sometimes I'll try and guide a person to be like, look at the CPC poster. And if you are using a BLNS CCA type entry, then you will take note that if your first screen is CCA, so this is just something I want to show everybody here, CCA for BLNS type situation. I'm going to go back to my tariff lines. Then I'll see, per my drop down, I now have the selection codes of 1,000 through to 8,000. And these are the BLNS type CPC codes. If you don't have the BLNS CPC poster with you, I can always share that with you as well, just to give you a CPC poster that I've manually drafted out, because I ran the selection saying 1,000 is linked to 6100, whereas 4,000 for the import would be your 1200, for instance. So just know what CPC code you are going to be using there. All right, cool. And then we'll just change this back to a DP. Now you can see the program's so versatile, I can really change my DP entry to be the CCA entry, just in case, oh, I messed this up. So I don't have to register a whole new file just to change the duty type back to what it's supposed to be. As long as it's not valid with customs as a procedure body, you can do that. But if you're trying to do that on a VOC, not really going to work, please. All right, so I'm going to add my line number 2. Line number 2, I'm just going to make this a GR entry, because I know as per the recommendations, I've got a DP-GR situation. So I'll specify my 1400. So you know what CPC code you need to choose. The tariff chapter here, I'm just going to use 85 and select electrical motors. From that, this one is general duty. I see 50 is automatically put in. I would need a schedule 407 rebate code. Now, as per the guideline for application, it also shows you from the SARS website, the 1400 is linked to what rebate code procedure measure. So if you get a rejection saying procedure measure doesn't match CPC combination, that probably means that your rebate code doesn't match your CPC code combination. I'll find that guideline for application. It's somewhere in my PC, sorry, but I do know where to find it on the SARS website, so I can share that with everybody. You should be linked on the chat as well. Absolutely. Let's see if I can find that CPC poster as well. I can't seem to find anything on my PC at the moment, but I do know it's called the CPC poster. Let me see if I can't put it in the chat quickly. So there's the CPC chart, CPC poster BLNS. So this is one I created quite some time ago. Ooh, I do remember that I couldn't post it to the chats of Microsoft Teams, which makes life fun. So now that I'm mentioning these things, I'll just make sure the links are available on the YouTube channel as well. Or if you do know, just pop me an email if you want those documents like right away, and I'll gladly locate it and share it on email to whoever requires it. Right, so I've saved line number 2. Now I'm going to press the save option, but I see line number 2's asked me for statistical quantity 1. So I'm going to put 10 over here, but then in the next line I'm going to put 11. Unfortunately, the EasyClear system allows you to save that, but there's no stat quantity for number 2. So you'll get a rejection saying, customs isn't asking you for stat quantity 2, why are you inserting it? All right. Cool, then we can just proceed via that method here. There will be VAT on this one. Now I can see this one's general duty, the other one's EU, so allocate certificates. So if I had 50 lines, I want to pick up everything that's got rules of origin, press the refresh button, and I can see, my tariff chapter 84, that needs a certificate of 1001 actually, because now I've got the right one. But 85, I know I loaded that with general duty, so I'm only going to load it to the 84 tariff chapters. There's one of those located, hit the allocate button, then I can refresh line number 1, scroll down, and I can see, oh, there's my RU 1, and there's another RU certificate. So this might reject. So it's always best to say, if you use the allocate certificate, leave the RU certificate out when you add in the RU certificate at the end, so it doesn't duplicate like this. Otherwise, you're going to have to come in and manually just sort that out. So that's why I prefer people to say, leave it till right to the end. Right. And the next screens are quite straightforward and simple. My running total of the FOB value is 0. I don't worry about the mass because this one's asking for 50, but my other line is NO, so number of pieces doesn't measure the mass, so I know that one's 50 as well. So by default, I can just go ahead and submit. So if this is the first time I'm running the worksheets, I don't have to press recalculate. Then I have the option to press standard, compact worksheet, or detailed. You can always come back and reprint any of the above at any given time, where only the detailed one allows you to print via the Excel version. So I personally prefer the standard one. And only if you're told to buy EasyClear would you use the importer's deferment account. If you select that and you realize, oh, my serial number doesn't look correct, well, that's because you chose the wrong option here. Other is generally if you have multiple companies, but you would like to you register to use somebody else's fan number, but they're not an importer's deferment account. It's a alternative company's deferment account. We can help you set that up. By default, please select agent and then run your worksheet. If you do find that your SCD 500 still says agent or importer while you're trying to create the EDI message, but you know that is wrong, you're going to have to come back and recalculate your worksheet to say agent. And please, 99% of you, please leave it as agent. Only the companies that are told to use import or other, they know who they are, because you would have had a client's deferment account using their fan number or another agent's deferment account. Cool. I can see my worksheet has been downloaded. And even now at this point, I've previewed my worksheet. As long as I preview my worksheet, I can also go to the easy filing segment and see my worksheet is automatically attached to the file. All right. Next, we're going to go over to the SAD 500. So as I say, the first screen I made payment code F. I can see there's VAT involved here. Payment code F is not going to work. It's going to have to be D for your deferment or C for cash. Once I'm happy with that information, I can see, cool, my depot code is there, cargo status. A lot of the time people get a valuation code missing and you have to retype that information. Well, if you go to your supplier's defaults in the client maintenance screen, you can actually insert the N1 code there, or whatever the code is that corresponds to it, and then you won't get that warning anymore. Or from a managerial point of view, you can give EasyClear the instruction to write a script that updates all your suppliers to be the same code, or ask us for a suppliers list and you can upload each one's code independently. We can match it to the EasyClear system and re-import it from Excel. We love doing that for clients. Depends how busy we are, but as I say, we can do it for you and we can accommodate. If, say, for instance, I try and create the EDI message, but it says valuation code invalid or missing, then you didn't populate the supplier's invoice, just come back in here, put in N1, save it, and then you won't get that error. You can create your EDI message. Okay. I can see my endorsements and my marks and numbers. I can scroll down further. ICN information for imports. So obviously for exports, your UCR information, but ICN is determined by your e-filing system. Is there a payment reflecting from your importer to your supplier on your e-filing system or their e-filing system? And is there an ICN reference? If that is the case, then customers will more than likely ask for it to be in here purely because that information needs to correspond to the Reserve Bank. If, say, for instance, at a later stage, you also know box 28. Box 28 indicate a yes or no. By default, I'm going to mark this off as yes, because if I have a valid VAT number for my importer, and the importer goes and claims back their VAT in a VAT 201, if this isn't marked as yes, they're going to struggle to claim that back. We do allow the VOC portion down below. So this portion we'll do on the VOC meeting next, but you don't need to touch this portion unless you are doing a substitution entry. Then I would just populate those highlighted fields over there only. I'll put in my own personal reason in the VOC box, which obviously does not go to customs. That can be used for internal purposes on a substitution type entry. Put in my previous bill of entry details, go to the top section there, and then I must be on the screen here, save, create the EDI message to make certain I get the +5 in my EDI message saying it's a substitution. If you miss that process, it will probably go through as a +9 in original entry, giving you a double declaration for penalty based on SARS Section 91. So please try and avoid that if you're doing substitutions, or if you're uncertain, phone us. Let's do some hand holding while you're going through that process. So I'll press save now. Now I'm going to try and create my EDI message. I see I've got a drop down here for DP and GR. So I'd very much like to be like, okay, create the EDI message for GR, but it hasn't actually been saved. So we actually make certain you do select the GR portion here. And at the same time, I see, oh, there's also customs VAT. So I'll press the C, press the save button, just review all my information on the GR is also correct. I'm happy with it. Now I can press this printer looking option here to OK and open the printout of the SAD500. Please remember, every time you print it, it's going to give you two sets of documents at every single time. One being, I see that DP is putting through first. And if I scroll down further, I can see the next page is my GR, each with its own unique LRN number. So that's known as a split entry if you have two selections on top. And then you would go ahead and create your message for the DP. If you EDR the DP only, but you're like, oh, I forgot to create the GR entry, you're going to get a notification in EasyClear saying, hey, your GR hasn't been submitted. And then you can go back, and if the file is locked, you need to unlock the file first before you can go ahead and create the GR portion as well. Now, I'm happily creating EDR messages because this is a complete test environment. I can confirm that just by the section I'm highlighting here. I can see +9 shows me an original message. So this is where I'd see GR for, if I had to do a substitution entry, that would say +5. I'm going to sync this off to customs. Now, even if I'm located on a different file altogether, I'm just going to go into this RRB shipment here. Go to the EDI send and receive screen, press the green sync button. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because looks like a test scenario to Champers cargo dues is giving us a bit of issues. I think they're blocking our website, to be honest with you. But if I press the sync button here, my messages or any file that is sitting on pending upload is going to go to customs. So if you don't want the EDI message to go to customs, please don't create the EDI message. If you do find it is causing a little bit of a problem in your business environment, then maybe the next best bet there is we do have a setting that allows you to only send EDI messages per entry clerk. That's a very finite setup. So please, from a managerial point of view, let us know. So I can see I got 2 rejections accordingly. I'm presuming that's the vessel call sign that's probably rejected or something like that. If I get a rejection, I can click on the description option. From the description option, I see there's nothing on top showing me the rejection. So I just scroll down a little bit and I can see, I personally only read the brackets. So deferment number, this entry has been rejected as it contains a fan number, an incorrect fan number. Please correct your fan number. So sometimes they would tell you what financial account number to use. But you'll take note, I'm not reading anything other than what's in the brackets. Next rejection. So my fan number is wrong. Next one is my gross mass of the consignment. Gross mass of the consignment must be supplied. Now I'll take notes of that it probably wasn't on my SAD500. My processing party for the rebate registrant. So for the GR entry, my rebate user should have been inserted. And then for my GR entry, I see because of the 407 code that I use, my VAT is exempted by the trader. So my GR, I can actually specify the VAT as no. So if you are uncertain, just submit with VAT and just double check with customs where they come back saying VAT is not mandatory, because I'd rather submit VAT than get a VAT penalty. Because if you have R1 million VAT, 10% of that is quite a high penalty. Right, so that's how you can also review those type of rejections. There's the GR rejection, and then the DP one should solely be country of origin is not part of the agreement. So EasyClear was right where it said trade agreement doesn't exist. And then the VAT calculated should be the full VAT amount, but it was exempt purely because of my trade agreement that I was utilizing for the DP entry. And then it's even telling me what is the correct financial account number I should have used for my test profile. Alrighty, thank you very much everybody for joining, and I appreciate your time and effort. Do have a lovely day.